Hello everyone, this is Satya Prakash. Welcome to my channel. This is part 13 of ASP.NET Web API. In this video, we'll discuss what is content negotiation in Web API. So before going through this part 13 of ASP.NET Web API, please visit my part 12, that is how to perform put method in ASP.NET Web API using Entity Framework. You can get this video in my playlist called ASP.NET Web API tutorial. So in this video, what we'll discuss is what is content negotiation and how Web API perform on request for data in a specific format, and how to configure serialization settings of formatters. Okay, so first of all we'll learn how to perform the content negotiation in Web API. So one of the standards of the RESTful services is that the client should have the ability to decide in which format they want the response. It should be XML or JSON. So a request that is sent to the server includes an accept header. So I'll tell you guys, this is my code, right? This is the employee controller. Right, so this is for get details, that it will return all the list of employees. I already have discussed in my previous videos for all the HTTP verbs. So this is the get verb, which return type is enumerable of employee data object. So this will return all the list of employees whatever in our DB. So we'll implement the content negotiation of this request only. So I already have opened my fiddler here, and I copy my URL of Web API, that is HTTP localhost. This is my port number, and /API/employees is the controller, right? And okay, I'll tell you. So what happened is, using the accept header, the client can specify the format for the response. For example, I want the response in XML. So what I'll do is, I will mention like this: accept application / XML. All right, and after then what I'll do, I'll execute that. And all right, okay, so again I'll type here. Maybe due to space it will not getting properly, so I'll remove all and type here accept application / XML, and my HTTP verb is get selected. So I'll do here is execute. So I can see here one result I'm getting, and I'll click this one. I can see it returns the XML format for the response, right? And if you can see XML tab is by default is selecting. And if you go to the under list of employees, you can see in XML format the employee date object contains first name Manoj 1, gender female, ID 1, last name Ratha 1, and salary 71,000. If you go to raw data, and you can see is the XML format, it is contents, right? The raw data 1. Okay, now I'll go to composer. So I want the response in JSON format, so that replace the XML with JSON. Alright, and I'll do here is I just click here. Before that I remove all and click execute. You can see one result is generated with the result 200. So click this one, and I can see the response is in JSON format, right? You can see here. The same is first name is Manoj 1, gender is female, ID 1, last name Rath 1, and salary 71,000. If you will go to raw data, and you can see it is in XML. It is in JSON format, right? So it is not properly indented. So I'll tell you in the last in the next, that is how to properly indent of that data using our Web API. All right. So next one is, depending on the accept header value in the request, the server send the response. So this is called the content negotiation, right? So this is the accept header, whatever I have mentioned. So how Web API do perform the action when we request for data in a specific format or response? So basically I'll tell you in the code. Web API controller generates a data nothing but the employees list, right? List of employees. that we want to send for the client. For example, if you have asking for a list of employees, the controller generates the list of employees, and it will hand the data to the web API pipeline, which then looks at the accept header, and depending on the format that the client has requested. So web API will choose the appropriate formatter, like here XML or JSON. So formatter is nothing but the XML formatter or JSON formatter. So for example, if the client has requested for XML data, so web API uses XML formatter. If the client has requested for JSON data, web API uses the JSON formatter. So these formatters are called media type formatters. So I already have shown you earlier how to using accept header and JSON and XML media type formatter to get the response, right? So this is nothing but the media type formatter. So media type formatters are two. That is, the one is JSON media type formatter one, and another one is XML media type formatters. So ASP.NET Web API is greatly extensible. This means we can also plug in our own formatters for custom formatting the data. So I already have shown you using JSON formatter and XML formatter. If you want to you want your own plugin, and you can create your own plugin to do some other formatters instead of using JSON and XML. You can do that, right? You can custom formatting the data using your own formatters. All right, so what different scenario is, I'll tell you. There is multiple values can also be specified for accept header. In this case, the server picks the first formatter, which is JSON which can be JSON formatter, or it can be XML formatter. So how it can be? So what I'll do here is so accept header application /JSON. I want to put comma here and paste here, right? And I'll mention here XML. Alright, so what I'll do here is I just remove all. So you can see in accept header I have mentioned two formatter at a time, right? We'll check which response I am getting in the response. Okay, I'll click here execute. So I can see here JSON formatter is executed. That means server picks the first formatter, which is a JSON formatter, and formats the data in JSON, because I have mentioned the first formatter as a JSON. If I'll click here, I can see the data in JSON format, right? Alright, so go to composer, and what I'll do here is I want to mention here as XML here as first formatter, and JSON I want to JSON as a second formatter. So I want to check the response. I'll click here execute. Alright, so by default it will taking also JSON formatter, right? So I'll check here accept application /XML comma application /JSON. Okay, I want to remove all and click execute. So also I'm getting the response here as JSON, right? Alright, so guys, I'll tell you I want to check here, remove this one, accept header application /XML comma application. Okay, remove this one. We'll check the response. This is the XML format, right? So here I want to mention also XML JSON, and put only one comma here, and click here execute. So I'm getting the JSON formatter, right? Also you can also specify the quality factor, and in the example I'll tell you the XML has the higher I'll mention the higher quality factor. So how to set is a higher quality factor here. Okay, so what I'll do here is I'll mention here semicolon and put here q equal to 0.9, and here I want to, for quality factor for JSON is q equal to 0.5. Alright, so here I remove all those things. So so here guys, what I do here is using quality factor, we can decide which formatter will be executed first. So I have set the quality factor for XML is q equal to 0.9, and for JSON I have mentioned the quality factor is 0.5. Alright, so click here, execute. So I can see here XML formatter, right? XML response. So if you click here, I get the XML response here. It is because in my accept header I have mentioned the bigger quality factor for XML 0.9. Okay, I'll put here 0.5, and I want to mention here for JSON as quality factor is 0.9. We'll check the response. So here put execute. I can see JSON for JSON response is executed because I have mentioned the quality factor for JSON is 0.9. It is bigger than XML formatter, that is 0.5. If you click here, I can see the JSON format response. Alright, so if you don't specify the accept header, by default the web API returns the JSON data. Alright, so guys, I'll tell you, if I'll remove all this accept header, I have not mentioned anything here that is XML or JSON. So what we are getting the response. So by default web API returns the JSON data, not XML data. Okay, so remove all these things. We'll check here, click here, execute. I can see here JSON data, right? So that means web API returns the JSON data by default if the accept header is not mentioned any XML or JSON accept header. Alright, so next one is when the response is being sent to the client in the request format, notice that the content-type header of the response is set to appropriate value. For example, if the client has requested application /XML, the server sends the data in XML format. I'll show you here, and with the code for set the content type is, that is content hyphen type, that is the equal to, and we'll mention here application /XML. This is the content type we can mention here in our request, right? So if we'll click here, execute, I get the bad request. Okay, that is the content type, content hyphen type. Okay, that is the it is because it should not be equal to, it should be colon. Okay, so we'll check here, just remove all these things. I want to check the response, so I can get the response right in XML. So if you click here, I can get the response here as XML format. So in using content type header, I want to mention here JSON. So click execute, and I can see the JSON formatter. I can see the JSON formatted data here. So in this way we can set the content type for request the response from the server. And next one is I already have told you, right? The formatters are there, that is JSON and XML formatters. The formatters are used by the server for both the request and the response messages. So when the client sends a request to the server, we set the content hyphen type header to the appropriate value to let the server know the format of data that we are sending. For example, if the client is sending JSON data, then content hyphen type header is set to application /JSON. The server knows it is dealing with JSON data, so it uses JSON formatter to convert the JSON data to .NET type. Similarly, when a response is being sent from the server to the client, Depending on the accept header value, the appropriate formatter is used to convert .NET type to JSON or XML. So it is also very easy to change the serialization settings of these formatters, right? So but we will not mention here manually in our request header. So what I will do here is, for example, if you want JSON data to be properly indented and you can use the XML and use camel case instead of Pascal case for property names, all you have to do is modify the serialization settings of JSON formatter, right? So I'll tell you what is a camel case and which is not properly indented. So guys, I'll tell you it is I'll go to JSON formatter and go to raw tab. Here you can see this response is not properly indented and it shows us the camel case instead of Pascal case for property names. So how to do it? It can be possible using serialization settings. So how to perform the serialization settings in our code? So how to do it? You can see before that I want to stop my debugging, and I want to change some in my code for modify the serialization setting of the JSON formatters. So how to do it is, you can see there is one CS file called web API config.cs. You can get this file under app_start folder. So there is a register method which have one parameter, that is HTTP configuration, and it has a object is config, right? So using this config object, we will write these serialization settings. We can modify the serialization settings of JSON formatters. So what I'll do here is using this config object, config.formatters dot I want to JSON formatter. So JSON formatter dot serialization settings, right? Serializer settings dot formatting, okay, and equal to Newton soft dot which the response is JSON dot formatting dot indented. Okay, so that line of code is for properly indented using JSON response. Next line of code is, I'll tell you, for use the camel case instead of Pascal case, right? So I want that camel case instead of Pascal case, because in our response we can see it is not properly indented, and it is in Pascal case. So I want to change in our code to get the response in properly indented, and we can use the camel case instead of Pascal case for property names. So there is the next line of code is using the same config object, config dot formatters, that is again JSON formatter dot serializer settings, okay, and dot contract resolver equal to new. I want to here create the instance of the camel case property names. So camel case equal to new serializer settings dot contract resolver equal to new camel case property names, contract resolver. I want to use this one, so it is not there. So what I'll do here is I want to use the namespace for it. Okay, there is camel case, property names, contract. Okay, so this is the, you can see here, right? For that we want to use this namespace, that is using Newton shop.json.serializations. Okay, I click this one and it can be added the namespace in our code, right? You can see using this namespace you can access to this instance class, that is the camel case property names contract resolver class, right? So after doing this, only this using these 2 lines of code, I can indent my JSON data, and also I can use the camel case instead of Pascal case for property names. So this first line of code is for properly indented for the JSON data or JSON format, and second line of code is for using the camel case instead of Pascal case for property names. So all I have done is modify the serialization settings of JSON formatter in our file called web API config.cs under app_start folder. After then I click save my changes. Alright, and what I'll do here is build my solution. So I can see, guys, build is succeeded. After then I'll want to run my application. Okay guys, I can see my application runs properly, and I'll go to my fiddler. Okay, I'll remove all these things, and I can see I'll mention here accept header as application /JSON. I want to set here execute. So guys, here I can see the JSON response, right? I'll click this one and I can see the JSON response. So our requirement is in raw data, in raw tab, the JSON data should be properly indented. I can see the JSON data is properly indented, and I can see this in camel case instead of Pascal case for each property names, right? So earlier this JSON data was not properly indented, and it is used Pascal case for property names. But after doing these serialization settings or modify the serializer settings in our web API config.cs file, now our JSON data is properly indented, and I can see the camel case instead of Pascal case for the property names. So this is our requirement. Alright, so what I'll do here is okay, can we do for XML as well? Okay, let's check here. So guys, for XML I want to try to do it. Okay, so for XML it was also not properly indented, right? So what I do here is I just instead of JSON formatter, I want to XML formatter, and instead of JSON, okay, so you can see that XML media type formatter does not contain a definition serialization settings, so it cannot no accessible extension method serialization settings accepting a first argument of type XML media type formatter. So that means XML formatter doesn't have these serialization settings, only the JSON one, right? So that's why we are getting this response. Exactly, I want to replace here with XML. Let's try. Here is, yeah, the same response, right? XML media type formatter does not contain a definition of serializer settings. So guys, we can set the serializer settings for JSON formatter or JSON data. All right. So in this way, we can implement the content negotiation and how to modify the serializer settings using our web API config, you know, serialization settings in our web API config.cs file in app_start folder. So I'll go to my presentation here. So what is content negotiation is a request that is sent to the server include a accept header, right? So using the accept header, the client can specify the format for the response. So depending on the accept header value, the server sends the response. This is called the content negotiation. It is nothing but if the response is if the request is for we want to get the response as XML, then application /XML. If you want the response as JSON, the application /JSON. So this is called the content negotiation, and I'll tell you uh, that is the using JSON formatter and XML formatter. So these are also called media type formatter. So based on the formatter also we can get the response as well. For JSON formatter we can get the response JSON you know JSON formatter for JSON response, and for XML formatter we can see the XML response. Okay, that's it for today guys. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.